The European Youth Dialogue took place at the harbour of Thessaloniki, the European Youth Capital 2014, from 8th to 11th May. The event was organised by the Heinrich Böll Foundation Greece within a long preparatory process in close cooperation with many partner organisations from Greece and abroad. During this 4-day meeting, 120 young Europeans, aged between 18 and 29 years old, had the chance to meet a few weeks before the European elections and discuss on ways to create a better future by sending the message the youth will take the future in their own hands by reclaiming it.
It's good to have, so to say, persons from the EU member states, to say Western countries, and also to have this from Southeast Europe, and to see what are our common position on different topics.
We want to send a strong message. The European youth will not allow themselves to fail, nor wants it to be a victim. Young Europeans will take the future in their own hands, connecting in networks, intervening with common actions, and force the politicians to take their demands seriously and to not longer postpone promises made to them in the future. The European Youth Dialogue is about self-determination and participation. It provides space for advocacy and networking.
So what we got to do here at the conference is talk and work with other young people from different European countries, which is very, very exciting and also very interesting to hear their perspectives and their experiences also within the field of refugee activism and protest. And we hope that in the future we can continue working with them and just stay in touch and try to make a change.
After the ice-breaking games, the participants watched the film Reunion, directed by Gabriel Tsafka, Greek expat to Denmark.
This is a film which I started thinking to do when I decided to move away from Greece, and I went in Denmark, and then I realized that I was not the only one, but there were also a lot of people from Spain, Italy and Portugal. Of course, for me, this is not a crisis story, this is a post-crisis story. It has to do with the consequences of what happened when people move away, what happened to the country where they are moving and to the country which they are living. But also what is happening in Europe in a larger image.
In one day, 20 workshops in total took place, giving to the event a special importance due to their thematic diversity. The aim of the workshops was to learn from each other and to share experiences by contributing own ideas and knowledge to the discussed issues, such as the future of Europe and Euroscepticism, youth participation in political decision-making processes, the social and creative entrepreneurship and economy, refugee protest, LGBTQ and minority rights, sustainable energy, corruption in education and its impact on party patronage, and state capture against youth's development. In the end, participants presented to the plenary the results of the workshops.
I can add that I'm really completely surprised and impressed by the diversity of the topics that we addressed today, and I had very good experiences as well in my workshops, and it's great thing that we are exchanging with others, really coming with from different backgrounds. It's really great.
Hello, I'm Mine from Turkey, and I'm coming from an organization called Orman Evi. And our workshop was about land-based youth initiatives, and we talked about how to create a sustainable, happy and self-sufficient life in urban and rural areas. And at the end of the workshop, everybody created his or her own sustainable and self-sufficient life in small groups. So I think that was a good experience for us and also for participants to see that there are some alternative lives other than city life.
Hey, how did you like the workshop on the corruption in the higher education?
Yeah, I think that it was very useful because most of the Western Balkan countries have this kind of problems with the corruption in the higher education, and we've seen that there is some kind of cultural context that we are sharing some deep and common problems when it comes to higher education, and also that we come up to the conclusion that we have, so to say, this kind of cultural heritage from the post-socialist period of time.
My expectation was actually to show young people that an alternative way of life is possible, and also to think about these issues and to make them create their own ideas about this topic.
This workshop on LGBT issues, and we've seen that problems with Turkey and Bosnia and Herzegovina, Croatia, and also Germany, let's say pretty the same. We have also problems with the tradition, we have problems with the religious communities, and we've seen that there are some good examples how to solve this kind of problems.
The participants are they were mostly from non-governmental organizations working with refugees. And I think one of the perspectives we could make clear, because that's maybe not as common, is that it's really important to empower people, and people empower themselves, and to give them the opportunity to. And I think this is one of the outreach that we need to be more aware of, not talking about people, but talking with people and listening actually to people.
The mayor of Thessaloniki, Yannis Boutaris, saluted the conference and discussed with the participants. Panel discussions were held open to the public, where the participants and the invited speakers had the chance to discuss. What are the differences in the way millennials regard life, their personal values and morals? How do they regard work-life balance and career? What do they expect from employers, and what do the employers expect from them? What are their concerns, and what are they fighting for or against? Or are they not fighting at all? Young people tend not to express anymore their political opinion in political arenas. For example, through traditional ways of political participation, such as face-to-face conversation. Instead, they seem to prefer new and trendy means of political communication, such as internet, social media, or signing online petitions. Is this a more effective way of participation, or a less responsible one? And how do we prevent young people's contribution from being lost in an information overflow?
We're still learning how social media is transforming our political participation, because as I mentioned previously, political participation is about communication both ways. And I think that as much as Generation Y is ready to use social media for various issues, Generation X and the baby boomers, which are the stakeholders and the policy makers currently in our societies, are not as prepared to use social media. And I think that once we balance out these interests in different ways of political participation, we will have a much more effective communication on democratic matters.
I think for young people, social media, internet, and all of this online participation is very useful, because if you want to start a campaign, it's very easy to get target groups online. It's very easy to access people, and you don't need to spend so much money on campaigning.
The obvious fact that there is an increasing number of young people that neither have a job or are in education or have any sort of training that you cannot avoid noticing. And the European Commission, at the request of the European Parliament, in fact it was the Green Group that was the first to start a discussion about the European Youth Guarantee. They adopted that agenda somehow and convinced the Council to also underwrite that agenda. Now, that's the positive side. The failing side, the downside is that this is not being implemented with enough funding, very simply put. The 6 billion euros that have been designated for that purpose are far from sufficiently addressing the issue. So there's the struggle on now over how we could secure from the different member states sufficient funding for this common European task. The fact that we address it as a common task, that signals progress. The fact that we are lagging behind with implementation, that's something we have to fight. But having said all that, I would still insist that even a beautifully executed policy with regard to this European Youth Guarantee could not solve the underlying macroeconomic issues unless we change our general policy direction, the general trajectory of European economic policy from the present focus on austerity towards a new focus on investment, public and private investment also into infrastructure, investment into R&D, investment into new green jobs. Unless we do that, we will not be able to solve the issue. If you compare it to climate policy, unless you do the mitigation part, reducing emissions, adaptation will never catch up. Of course you have to do some adaptation, and this is what we do with creating good standards for internships and all that, but we have to do the mitigation part and change the economic rationale.
One actually important project, which is not a program which is not so well known yet, is the European Alliance for Apprenticeship, which actually tries to increase the work-based elements in work, and especially apprenticeship, because there is the belief that with apprenticeship and some of the characteristics, which means that education and the economy, the employers, work together in designing the curricula, is the one thing. And the second thing is to create an employment-like creation with learning and training in a formal way, leading to a qualification which is recognized by the formal system and also gives you the possibility to go on.
The participants of the European Youth Dialogue had also the chance to meet the city of Thessaloniki. The volunteers of Thessaloniki European Youth Capital guided the young Europeans through the city and its sightseeing. The walk was mostly focused on the socially engaged organizations, creative and innovative experiments, cooperative projects, and citizens' initiatives.
I definitely think that people have gained already from this debate. It was debated now in many places across Europe, and especially here in Thessaloniki, because we have a big contradiction. On the one hand, 2 million European citizens say no to privatization of water and sanitation systems. And what do we observe here in Thessaloniki and in Greece? The European Union, the Troika, enforces on Greece the privatization of water. So in a way we are here a little bit in the epicenter of democracy building in Europe, because because the Thessaloniki citizens now say that's not the way we want it, and they organize a self-organized referendum. Just across the street we have met in the city hall, and it's very impressive to see activists from all over Europe coming together and to fight against the privatization of water here in Thessaloniki. And yeah, let's see, it's an open game.
The day ended with a live music party open to the public with local bands.
I got on the phone and called the ghost and me met me down a car that was raining, na na na. Hey, na na na. And I soon as I'm fancy out, but on the stove me I'm going, nay na na na. Nay na na na. Oh, nay na na na. Nay na na na. Oh, nay na na na. Nay na na na. Na na na. Where the biscuit I said it. This baby, no, that long day, na na na, day na na na. She came in and I speak so long, say was it when I play that song, day na na na, day na na na, oh, day na na na, day na na na.
Not only the content of the seminar was satisfying, also the warmth and kindness of the people I met was of great value. In a more informal way, we got to know each other in the vibrant city of Thessaloniki. New friends were made and working groups were formed. Most of all, I learned from this seminar that we have to encourage and promote to think in a European state of mind. Together we are stronger to face the difficulties of tomorrow. Finally, it was also great to have the opportunity to network with other young Greens from around Europe and to get to know the different ways that they campaign, the different objectives we have, the main controversial issues they work on and how they deal with these. To conclude, I would describe the experience of attending the European Youth Dialogue in 3 words: dialogue, creativity and exchange. European Youth Dialogue was an excellent platform for dialogue among young Europeans that allowed us to create and think together of new projects which are the basis for a future exchange of opportunities.